cause to be born. Look at me, you know what to see? See a bad mother. Look at me, you know what to see? See a bad mother. Paid the cost to be the boss. Paid the cost to be the boss. Look at me. Know what to see? See a bad mother. Told me so. Having fun, got money fun. 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 Cause paid the cost, be boss. Paid the cost, be boss. Paid the cost, be boss. Cause the strikes, turn my back, cause the strikes, turn my back. Paid the cost, be boss.
This is it. Dope from the fly kid. The ice mic is back with the high bits. Suckers you lost, the players you're not. Gangsters you ain't, you fake punk if you ever heard a gunshot. You're the pusher, the player, the pimp, gangster, the hustler, high roller, dead press holder. It's cold lamping like a black king on the throne. Evilly, turn up the microphone so I can ill and break on the rolling tape. Another album to make, great. Islam turn the bass, kick up a bit, hype the snare. Now I got a place to sit and ride the track like a black neck in his lap. Hit the corner slow where the guns are at and kick game the way it should be done. How you gonna drop science? You're dumb, stupid, ignorant. Don't even talk to me. And screw you, drop math, science, and history. And then you get on the mic and try to act smart. But let me tell you one thing, you got heart to perpetrate your bait. So just wait till the press shove a mic in your face. Or you meet Boogie Down or Chuck D, Stetson Sonic or the Big Daddy. And they ask you about the game you claim you got. Drop science now, why not? You start to sweat and fret, it's hot. How'd you get into this spot? You played yourself. Yo, you played yourself. I'm no authority, but I know the DEAL when it comes to dealing with the female. What you got, they want cash is what they need. Slip sucker and they'll break you with speed. But you meet a freak, you try to turn her out. Spending money's what I'm talking about. But you pull out, your pockets got blew out. And after the date, no boots, you got threw out. Mad and shook cause your duckers got took. Call her up, phone's off the hook. But who told you to front and flaunt your grip? You can't buy no relationship, you played yourself. Your homeboy, you played yourself. I'm in the MC game, a lot of MCs front, and for the money they sell out stunts. But they claim that they're rich and that they keep cash. Yo, let me straighten this out fast. 200,000 records sold, and these brothers start yelling about gold. You better double that, then double that again. And still don't get sued, my friend. You think you made it, you're just a lucky man. Guess who controls your destiny? Fans. But you just cause you're a star. That attitude is rude, you won't get far. Cause they're turning you quick, you drop like a brick.
One, two, get down. Paid the cost to be the boss. at me. You know what? See a bad mother. Look at me. You know what? See a bad mother. Paid the cost, be the boss. Paid the cost, be the boss. Look at me. You know what? See a bad mother.
Hamzamo familia, welcome to the Black Hot Fan Network Africa Today show on the 30th of March, the year 2021. I want to welcome each and every one of us to the broadcast. I hope that you are having a wonderful morning, day so far. And Sean Scott, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You're saying good afternoon, Keith and Spikes. Salute to the melanated family out there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We also do have the wonderful sister Nish Penda. You're saying good vibes, and love our family, good vibes. We hope that you are doing well wherever that this particular day finds you. And before we start, I want to remind the family that you do have a network website, the official network website, which is www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. And once you are on the website, please make sure to sign up. You can click on the sign up tab on the top right. And once you do, you will be able to interact with the rest of the family and be able to, get onto the community chat. The community chat is actually on the show page. If you click on the show tab, it will actually take you to the community chat. And when you are there, like I said, you will be able to, share your thoughts on different matters that you get to discuss right here on the Black Hot Fire Network. I'm having a bit of a hit. I think my computer is freezing each and every other second. But nonetheless, I hope that we shall still be able to have a smooth sailing on this particular broadcast. I played some music, and that particular jam was really nice, and everyone seemed to be wanting to sample the song. We did have James Brown on that particular one, and the song was really jamming. And we had also Ice-T did also sample the song as well from James Brown. The name of the song by James Brown was The Boss, and he said that he had paid the cost. He had already paid the cost to be the boss, and therefore I think also Ice-T did also put some lyrics to that towards the same kind of an effect. And also Nas on the song Get Down, that is a little bit over some wonderful music. I know we get into some problems every other time when we are playing these particular songs on the live. But nonetheless, if you would like to enjoy more of the music, please make sure to head over to the network website, which is www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. And also be able to interact with the network with the rest of the family there. We also do have an app. It's available on Play Store. Please make sure to head over to Play Store and search for the Black Hot Fire Network app. You can be able to enjoy easy listening on the go as you go about your day-to-day work, whatever you might be involved in, whatever you endeavor, whatever you might be doing, you can still enjoy a little bit of the music on the network app. Brother Lando Winter, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and also Sister Monique, thank you so much for joining us all the way from California, and also Brother Lando Winter. You're saying greetings, Brother Spikes. How are you doing today? And you're also saying hello to Sister Nish. I'm doing fine. I hope that you're also doing well. And I want to thank everyone that has been supporting the Black Hot Fire Network. We never take your company for granted. And we know that many of the family might not be able to find us. Of course, most of the some of our channels have been taken down. And that is why perhaps you might not be able to get to find wherever you might be at. But it's good because when you do follow us on the network website, you can be able to see where we are streaming live from. You can also be able to see what channel we are on. We also do have a couple of other substitute channels. Please make sure to subscribe to them as well, so that you can also know when we get to change. Because every other time we have seen a lot of censorship going on. And we understand what is happening. We are not the only ones. We are talking even to Melanated Family, Melanated Warrior. Melanated Warrior was also saying that I think he lost about 2 of his channels. And I think also Kingston was telling us that he also did lose his channel. We know what is going on, and nonetheless, we keep it moving. And it's good that you subscribe to, you check out the network website so that you can know where we are actually streaming live on. Let them hang down. Thank you so much. He's saying peace, peace to you too. Thank you so much for being part of the Black Hot Fire Network, and everyone that has been supporting the network, even financially, with donations at $10, $15, $5, $50, whatever amount. We do really get to appreciate you, and the work is not in, your support is not in vain. We also want to give a quick shout out and a thanks to our Keith, because he is doing a wonderful job and he has given us this particular platform. I think sometimes Keith does the most. Keith, you will find him on the shows, and even when the voice is not really good, but he shall be joining us later on as we carry on. Yesterday, the connectivity was not as good, and that is why perhaps he was not able to speak much on some of the matters that we were speaking about yesterday. But we are hoping that today he will be able to start on the same on the matters that we did also get to cover yesterday. Sister Monique, you saying pay the cost to be the boss is my cut. It was a nice jam. Everyone had to sample it. Everyone had to get some of that particular one. Even Ice T and also Nas. And I and I watched a brother hang down and dollar. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. General Mosquito. How are things in the UK? I understand that with the whole situation with the Brexit, things have not been as they used to be. There is a lot of also blame game going on. When we hear the European Union saying that there is the European Union blaming the UK and other different countries on how they're handling the matter with the vaccinations and things like that. There's a lot of back and forth going on with the EU and the UK. But nonetheless, that's a whole different story. Shepo Simono, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You're saying peace. I hope that everything is well for you in Durban, South Africa, or Johannesburg. I was asking you yesterday, are you in Johannesburg or Durban? I would just like to know. But I hope that everything is well in South Africa. I understand, before even we leave South Africa, I understand that corruption in South Africa is also getting to levels that are crazy. I understand that all the members of the ANC, which is a ruling party, charged with corruption, must step down. That is a new rule. I think if we were able to curb corruption on the African continent, then we will be somewhere different. If you look at some of the countries with the most potential on the continent of Africa, these include Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, among other different nations on the continent. But all these countries are actually facing the same challenges. Some of the challenges include corruption. Corruption is one of the biggest problems on the continent, and we did see setting up of an inquiry, a commission really set up in South Africa to investigate corruption allegations. I will not even call it allegations, because I believe to what has been said and what has been found is that the former president, who was Jacob Zuma of South Africa, got involved with a couple of deals and Scoopras deals, and got involved with the corruption in that particular country, even with our foreign nationals. But as it is, the president right now, he is saying that he wants to tackle the matter of corruption in his own country. The current president goes by the names Cyril Ramaphosa, and he is saying that all members of the South African ANC, the African National Congress, charged with corruption must step aside or face suspension. They will be forced now. In some other places, they do say, for example, in Kenya, if you come up and go to, as a president or as a leader, and say that you are requiring that these particular individuals step aside, or these particular individuals, just step aside voluntarily so that they can enable investigation to continue, this will be taken as a political attack. Or, you're saying you're attacking the opposition, you do not want them to continue doing their job and other things like that, or you're attacking these particular individuals, or you're attacking their communities, especially in Kenya. In Kenya, if one leader is found to be involved in corruption and maybe they are asked to step aside, you might find them standing up and say, no, you're against the tribe. But when they were perpetrating this particular kind of a corruption, they were not with their tribe. Neither were they with anyone else. They were doing it on their own, and they were enriching themselves. And right now, let me see. We shall be seeing if this particular move shall be helping the people of South Africa in any kind of a way. They say that talk is cheap. But when it comes to, putting the work, most of these African leaders, most of them who are puppet leaders, will not even be involved with the action. They will talk the talk, but when it comes to working that particular work, you will not find them anywhere. They might just put. I think this is also another kind of a way to sort of make it seem this is just a public gesture. gesture where he might want to be seen as if he want to tackle the matter of corruption head on, because he knows if you talk about corruption like this, you might find investors coming back in the country. We have seen foreign investors in South Africa, some of them including even the Japanese, among other different foreign investors that have decided to put in their money. But at the end of the day, I think there's a very, very big problem when it comes to this, because you find that people are not recovering. People do not get the rightful returns for the investment because of the issue of corruption. In Kenya, which is where we all actually are right now, you do find that the president standing in front of the crowd and saying that Kenya is losing 2 billion shillings, 2 billion Kenya shillings on a daily basis because of corruption. And then the question is, if you are the head of the country and you are in power, what are you doing about it? Or are you just going on the podium and saying, oh, our country is losing 2 billion every day? And, I know the people who are doing it. Why are you not holding them accountable? Either you are part and parcel of this particular cartel that you're talking about to do still 2 billion shillings on a daily basis, or you are not in real control, or you're not the man in charge. That is also a question that we need to ask, and also get to check out and understand what is happening. Shepo Simone, you're saying you are in South Africa. Do you think these sentiments of the president, are to be taken any seriously when he calls for these other members of this political party to step aside? Some of them who have been implicated in these corruption allegations. Do you think? What do you think? What are your opinion also on this particular matter, Mr. Shepo Simono? I would just like to know, because I think for me this is just a public a gesture where I might make it seem as if he might need to put some work, and nothing really might happen at the end of the day, because it's the order of the day. General Musiri says, I got my British passport, so fuck a Brexit, Spike. That guy's face is corruption. Yes, they all did it, stealing left, right, and center. And I was looking at some of the countries where the corruption is also so rampant. For example, South Africa, but Nigeria is number one. If you're talking about corruption on the African continent, I have nothing against Nigerians, but I have a problem with what is happening. And the president has also tried to talk tough, to speak tough, and said, I want to do this, I want to hold people accountable. But if it's part and parcel of what is happening, then how are you going to hold anyone accountable while you're part of the corruption going on in your own country? And you might find sectors that have been ranked the highest. For example, the police departments. These are some of the high-ranking departments that are, some of the high-ranking when it comes to corruption. There is one of the organizations on the continent of Africa. It's known as a Transparency International. And I believe this is not just in Africa. I think Transparency International is a global body that has been putting together a corruption index. And let me share with this with you briefly, then we shall go on to more matters. The corruption index. The corruption index in Africa. According to Transparency International, and their report that they do give, I do believe they give this particular index every other year. I believe this is probably done for every other year, and they will be telling you some of the countries that are facing the toughest challenges when it comes to the matters of corruption. Let me just touch on this briefly before we get on to more matters. The entire political party is corrupt. You know what happens in Africa for most, which it's hard to report, but what happens in Africa is that you'll find the one particular corruption scandal being covered by another corruption scandal. For example, if there is a scandal involving, or if there's a scandal involving maybe the energy sector, where you do find that some money is missing, maybe the money was allocated to the energy ministry for there to be an expansion of maybe the power plants, and then the money goes missing, and then there is that particular inquiry. What happened to that particular money that was allocated to this particular department or this ministry? What happens is that before that particular story is handled, or before that particular story is covered, you will find another scandal in another different ministry. Maybe they will talk about the agriculture ministry. Some money was put in, and they wanted this particular money to be used for the sole purpose of helping the farmers get some fertilizers or some farm inputs that are at lower prices, or that are subsidized. But then again, go back and you will find nothing was done. And before you know it, that particular story will be covered by another one, and then another one, and then another one. Nonetheless, you will find some of the countries that have been ranked, and you will find the most of the countries ranking with corruption, high in corruption. Most of them really are in Africa. Some of them are in Africa and others in Asia. I do know that there is also a lot of corruption in Europe. There's also a lot of corruption in Asia. I do not want to say that Africans are the only corrupt people, but I wanted to highlight the fact that much more needs to be done in South Africa. Not just talking about we're going to deal with it. We want people to resign and things like that. That is where we are actually going wrong. South Africa also ranks number 69 out of 181 in the corruption index, and it's crazy. Ghana is also corrupt, not as much as Nigeria. When you're talking about corruption, and I talked about some of the ministries. These include the police. The police have been said to be some of the highest ranking. This is a report by the Transparency International, I believe. You can also check it out and see what are some of the perceptions towards corruption on the African continent. And the governments do say that corruption starts from the grassroots all the way up, but I tend to differ because I think corruption is at almost at each and every other level. Sister Asha Walker, thank you so much for joining us. But I was saying, if you go to the island countries on the continent of Africa, the island nations, for example, if you go to a place like Seychelles, or even if you might also go to another place like Madagascar. Seychelles is not known to be too much involved with corruption, and also Mauritius. These are some of the countries where you shall find the corruption levels not being as crazy as compared to some other mainland countries such as Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Somalia, Angola. Those are to name about a few. Some of the countries maybe that you would really know. Things are tough. And Sister Monique says that the rules that needs up to a price and put up public display for treasonous acts against the people. Exactly, I agree, and off with the heads and so serious. That is exactly what needs to be done. Someone was actually saying that if they happen to win, maybe a lottery, which is not common, but if they happen to win a lottery, and they happen to have maybe like 100 million, what would be the best gift they would give to Africa? I know many of us have heard about that particular one, and they were saying they would just hire a mercenary to deal with, most of these people that have sold out their country, and that is how they would be given. That would be their gift to the continent of Africa, because so many things are going under the watch of these leaders, because most of them have also been implicated with this corruption. If you go, for example, and look into Nigeria, they do have two anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria. And even the anti-corruption agencies are also corrupt. Even the kind of officers or the kind of people that have been appointed to lead these particular positions in these anti-corruption agencies, you do find them are also being involved with corruption. But the president of South Africa has been talking tough. Shepo Simona, we shall be right back here maybe in a few months to see if anyone actually did get to step aside so that there could be the continuation of investigations, or whether this was just a public display of tough talk, tough speak, and nothing happening after this particular one. These are the individuals who have, of course, these are the puppet leaders who have allowed for other different nationals to come on the continent of Africa, other different people up from outside the continent, for example, the Asians, the Europeans, come up and pick up all the resources without any kind of consequences. The corruption, of course, as we know it, is also involving the Chinese. You will find some deals that are taking place between these officials in South Africa and the Chinese. You'll also find deals also being cut between these corrupt officials in Nigeria and the Chinese. And at the end of the day, these are treasonous acts, just like Sister Monique Hill has also stated. These are actually treasonous acts and should be dealt with as so. They should actually be dealt with as so, not just taking matters lightly, because this is also costing the countries a lot, and also jobs and other things when it comes to the grand scheme of things. Nonetheless, I want to move a little bit further from that and talk about something else that has been happening. And of course, this has to do with Biden. Sometimes we have talked about Biden, and Biden is also trying to push a narrative that he's on top of matters when it comes to matters of the tackling of the global pandemic. Because what has been said is that he wants to make it seem as if he is dealing with the matter any better than Trump would have done or anyone else would have done. And what he's saying right now is that the states should be very, very careful. He has said the states should be very, very careful when it comes to reopening of these particular states. And he has also asked for the reinstatement of the mask mandate. And this is what he has been saying. Let me share this briefly, and then we shall also continue with more matters.
This virus seriously. Precisely what got my call for every governor, mayor, and local leader to maintain and reinstate the mask mandate. Please, this is not politics. My call for every governor, mayor, and local leader to maintain and reinstate the mask mandate. Please, this is not politics. Reinstate the mandate if you let it down. And business should require masks as well. The failure to take this virus.
Sometimes Biden talks like he's whispering, sometimes he's anyhow.
My call for every governor, mayor, and local leader to maintain and reinstate the mask mandate. Please, this is not politics. Reinstate the mandate if you let it down. And business should require masks as well. The failure to take this virus seriously. Precisely what got us to this mess in the first place. Risk more cases and more deaths. Look, as I do my part to accelerate the vaccine distribution of vaccinations, I need the American people to do their part as well. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty. It's the only way we ever get back to normal. To cheer together in stadiums full of fans. To gather together on holidays again safely. Go to graduations, weddings.
Mr. President, do you believe that some states should pause their reopening efforts?
Yes.
And of course, when it comes to reopening and getting back to normalcy, I always keep on saying that it would be particularly difficult to talk about normal, going back to normal. That would be just like theoretical, when you talk about going back to normal and the way things were right now, it's completely difficult. But he has also asked the states, says that some states should pause a reopening of the states. We did see, was it in Texas? Yeah, I think that was in Texas. Was it in Texas or in Mexico? There were some places where people did say to hell with the mask. And we also did see some arresting of some anti-maskers in some areas on the African continent. It has also been the same. You will find so many people getting taken advantage of. For example, if you're moving around the streets and maybe you wanted to get a snack, and you might also be harassed by the police saying you're not with a mask, you should also pay a fine and things like that. Some police in Africa, the corrupt police, and also other different departments, you will find them harassing people and trying to make some money from these whole situations. Some people are enjoying, and you have heard about countries going back to a lockdown and put in place the measures again. For example, in Kenya, the curfew hours have also been increased. It used to be at 10 p.m. Right now we have gone back to 8 p.m. and things are crazy. There have also been cessation of our movement in some different areas, and we all know that these are numbers. I do believe these are numbers that are actually being propped up. Shepard want to say Mama Nisha, what's up? And let him hang down. You say, I shut the fuck up. Biden, don't you go some stairs to fall up. Biden might not particularly might not be keen on using the Air Force again. He might not particularly be keen on using the Air Force again because he's not even able to go up. You have heard him saying about the desks, and he meant deaths. And if the speech were to be longer, he would have now gone on to a downward spiral and talking about other things that are really, really incoherent. And that is why we were talking about him having to have Kamala Harris, babysitting Biden arrest. He just says something crazy, and the media catches up on that and show him for what it is. Although the media will still try and spin it and make it seem as if make it seem as if everything is okay with Biden. But nonetheless, I do believe at some point we shall still, I don't know for how long this particular mask mandate and everything else might be going on. I'm really not sure about that particular one, but the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, banned mask mandates. Nevertheless, in some places in Austin, it has still persisted. And that is why you're hearing about Biden talking about the places should be going back to the mask mandate. The US COVID cases are on the rise again. Of course, this is a story going around even in Africa. And of course, Biden has told the states and the local governments to reinstate these mask mandates, whether be it in Texas or whether be it also in Austin, wherever they will find this particular one being reinstated. Nonetheless, yesterday we were talking about some matter, and it has attracted some attention, but nonetheless, people still do not know what's happening with this particular. We were talking about Nike. Right now, as it is, Nike is going after these MCCH company that did work with Lil Nas X, and they are talking about infringement. They are saying there has been the infringement of copyright infringement because of this particular shoe that was made. This particular shoe that was made by these creative collective. These creative collective. And these are the makers of the Saturn shoes. I also do get to understand. Yesterday we were talking about if the shoes did sell out. The shoes actually did sell out. We are always doubtful that the shoes did sell out. I think they sold out in a very, very short time, and in a very, very short time. I don't know. In a very, very short time, and this is what is happening now. Nike has hit back. And they are saying that there have been an infringement of the trademark. There has been a trademark infringement with this particular shoe. And this is what we were discussing yesterday. We touched a little bit on it. Nike is suing the collective, the art collective behind the Lil Nas X certain shoes that have sparked a backlash on social media. They filed a lawsuit yesterday, and it has accused MSCHF product studio of trademark infringement over the designer's 666 pairs of modified Nike speakers made in collaboration with the Old Town singer. All the 666 pairs sold out on Monday. Yeah, they did sell out. Yesterday I was doubtful whether the shoes did sell out. Yeah, they did sell out. And MSCHF has not responded to repeated requests for comment about the lawsuit. We shall be watching. We shall be watching closely to see what happens with that particular one. If they might be in cahoots, these might just be another ploy. I don't think maybe it might just be another ploy. And now, of course, Lil Nas hasn't been named as a party in the lawsuit, which is also questionable. He has not been involved. He has not been named in this particular lawsuit. But representatives for the musicians did not respond to calls or emails requesting for comment on Monday night. And Nike has asked the court to order MSCHF to permanently stop fulfilling orders of the unauthorized Lil Nas X certain shoes. A lawsuit notes that social media users have threatened to boycott Nike over the controversial shoes, which did sell for $10-18. These are $10-18. And we were asking also where the blood was coming from. The blood was coming from the executives, the creatives, the team, using the team that was making this particular shoe. The modified black and red Nike Air 97 speakers are done to the bronze pentagram, charm and a drop of a human blood in the middle sole. The latest customized Nike footwear product to be released by MSCHF. The company also released a pair of custom-made Jesus shoes in 2019. I think even Jesus shoes perhaps might also have sold. I was trying to wonder what the Jesus shoes might have looked like, or whether they had verses on them, because black people might be trapped and might be confused. Black people might be thinking this is a real Jesus shoe. But this is what it looked like. Let me just share this briefly. And then we shall move on to more matters. Of historical significance. And these are the Jesus shoes. I understand. And these were made in 2019. And according to the network website, according to the website, which is jesus.shoes, they sold out, and therefore they do not have they did have a drop of holy water. I understand, according to marketing on put up on this. I think they also did have a drop of the holy water. Or anyway, it's crazy. Let me just leave that particular one alone. And I do not know who are buying these Jesus shoes and the Satan shoes. They probably own the company. They do. I think they do. I do not know about the ownership of this MSCHF company. They probably just getting people more confused and getting with these marketing ploys where people think, oh, something big with this. But I was saying, there might be also something indicate, there may be indicative of something else when we do have these particular executives saying that they're using human blood. It might become it might become the trend where people use human body or some parts of the human body to make this and that. And then we might hear more people disappearing because this product has human blood or human teeth or human this and that being used to make this particular product. And it's getting crazy as it can by the day, where you hear of all these sort of funny stories happening. And fashion is in the name of fashion. They're trying to make it in the name of fashion, where they can normalize some crazy things and just call it, it can just pass for fashion at the end of the day. But nonetheless, we shall not discuss much on that. I know it's crazy, but I want to talk about briefly on a matter of African history and what did happen with the transatlantic slave trade. There are so many people that have said, for example, we did hear Akon saying, oh, the transatlantic slave trade, people are all over that right now. We are not focused on that. We are actually now focused on these and other things in Senegal. But this is in part and parcel of African history, and of course, are people taken from the African continent, and even people who are brought back on the continent. We all know about Liberia, and Liberia was a place where is a nation that was really built, is a country that was really built to be a home for freed slaves. And even if you look at Liberia, if you look at the flag of Liberia, you will still understand that Liberia is still under the control of, it's not an independent country. Let me show us the map of the flag of Liberia before we proceed. This is how it actually looks like. And this also does share some history with from the transatlantic slave trade as well. And you would think that these are small states, the United States of America flag. But this is what it actually looks like for those of us who never just get to think on it and see what is happening with the Liberia flag and even the country itself. We were talking about corruption index. The country also ranks as one of the most corrupt. We had the president who goes by the name. We have the current president. He goes by the name George Floyd, and we had also the first woman president. She goes by the name. What's her name? Sally Johnson. And her son has also been implicated with corruption in the country. You do find a country where we do have the leaders making it seem as if it's a family business running a country, and they can take from the resources of this particular place. Here's a flag. If you look at this one, it looks very, very similar to the US. Of course, this was a home or a new country which was given to the freed slaves. But even if it was, we did have people in Liberia, even before we did have the return of the slaves. And what did happen eventually is that there was friction between the people who were there and also the slave, the descendants of a slave that came back. There was a bit of a friction now, but I believe I do not know about the current situation in that particular country right now, because when these particular people, the people that were taken as slaves that did came back, they were given ranks, and this, of course, was done so that it could maintain the control could be under the US. But nonetheless, let me share briefly on a little bit on the history of the transatlantic by Dr. Donald Jeffries, and then we shall make some few more deductions from this as we continue.
To look at it in what I refer to the story or the truth of what enslavement was has only been told in bits and pieces and from different perspectives. My approach is to look at it in what I refer to as a systems analysis, and you can't understand it, meaning the phenomena of enslavement, the transatlantic enslavement system, unless you see it through its system dimension. Looking at it by the bits and pieces would achieve what an African parable refers to as a partial truth, where 4 or 5 blind men came upon an elephant, and in their description, one had the leg and it saw it as like a tree trunk, and one had the trunk of the elephant and saw it like a snake, and one had the tail, and so one had the ear. So they all had aspect of the truth, but they didn't have the systems component to pull all the pieces together and make full sense. So the same thing with enslavement. Most of us say slavery starts in an African village. Well, it did not. And most of us say that slavery, a major factor in the slave trade, were Africans, and that wasn't the case. Slavery is a European conceived, maintained, sustained phenomenon. And so unless people understand that, they don't understand what enslavement is all about. We're not talking about domination of one people by another. That has always occurred. We're not talking about so-called African traditional enslavement. You're talking about a process in which a group of people dominated another and attempted to pull them out of the human family. And that's how we really have to describe enslavement. It's an enormous crime against humanity. But it doesn't start in a village in Africa. It doesn't start with slave routes coming down to the shores of Africa, because Africans would come down from the villages if they could and stand on the shore. They'd still be standing there. There wouldn't be any slave system. Slave system was conceived in Europe. Europeans, having enslaved their own people for 1,000 years in the white slave trade, were into a slave mode when they came across the Africans. So unless you can see 1,000 years of the white slave trade, you can't even understand what happened here. And so with the fall of the Roman Empire, 400, 450 AD, European systems collapsed in terms of trade and economics. And the biggest thing they had going between East and West, between Europe and Western Asia, was slavery. But it wasn't Africans, it was white people. Western Europeans selling Eastern Europeans, the Slavic peoples, into slavery. So, and that's the term slavery actually comes from Slavs. It doesn't come from Africans. But we have this tendency of saying African slaves. No, it's enslaved African peoples, but not African slaves. We want to apply the term generically to someone, apply it to the Slavic peoples. But most of us don't have any knowledge of the white slave trade. But that has to be clocked in. And then the period of feudalism, where European systems collapsed, where Europe was land poor, resource poor, people poor, unable to maintain its basic systems of functioning. That had so-called Dark Ages. That has to be put in the picture. And then 500 years of struggle against Islam. So all of this is occurring before the transatlantic slave trade. And then the war with Islam also included the Crusades. So you have from the 10th century on to the 15th century, these insane crusades, which all Europe is geared toward this marching across Europe to save Jerusalem, which was an insanity. And while the European men got on their horses to save Jerusalem, they locked their women up in chastity belts. So that's an interesting aspect of Europeanness. But the most interesting aspect of Europeans in relationship to their women, and this needs to be told, is that millions of European women were killed during this period because they were considered evil and witches. And so unless you clock that in, you can't even understand what motivated the European to even get out of Europe to do the things he did. And so I don't start with Africans coming out of a village, whether Africans pulled them out or not and dragged them down to the shores. You can't even understand why they were on the shore unless you understand that Europeans had come out of Europe, traveled down the coast of Africa, came to establishing so-called trade, but they really were interested in slavery from the very beginning because they had been at war with the Moors. The Moorish people had dominated Europe from 711 AD to 1492. You had a domination of Spain and Portugal and southern Italy by Moorish peoples who were people of color. So there was this war going on.
when it comes to domination over Europe by the Moors, that is not a lot of is not of, most a lot of it are taught in any African schools. You will not find that particular one. People will just tell you that Africa has been at the bottom for the longest time. It has been like that always, and that is the kind of a picture that has been painted even in historical classrooms in Africa. But it's a good thing. We do have a Dr. Leonard Jeffries still pointing out on the historical facts, which of course the European has tried very, very hard to try and invert, make them the what was on the bottom become the top, and then the top become the bottom, as he has always done, distorting historical, trying to distort the history of the African people.
Before West Africa became involved in the struggle. So I start the system in Europe, Spain and Portugal. And you got to put the Pope in there because several popes gave Spain and Portugal the right to enslave the infidels, which were non-Catholic peoples that they were at war with.
And of course, that has also been said. This is also a fact that the Catholic did sort of give a go-ahead to enslavement, because he said these are infidels, and therefore they can just be, subjugated and made into slaves. And of course, that was the right, the go-ahead given to Spain and Portugal. And these days, you will find, because of religion, many people, especially on the continent of Africa, ascribing to the Catholic religious beliefs, and it's crazy.
So unless you see the papal bulls, which are the papal decrees, giving Spain and Portugal the right to enslave, you can't even understand how the Catholic Church was in the middle of all of this.
Now, when we visit the slave dungeons, they have a lot of texts and they go along with the displays that explain a lot of this. However, they have left a lot of it out. Can you go into that dynamic? How is it that you can have a monument to a historical episode or historical drama with major portions that will give a clearer picture to what happened being left out, and the need and importance for us filling in those?
Well, Dr. John Henry Clark aptly explained that when the Europeans colonized our lands and our resources and our bodies, he colonized knowledge. And it's necessary for him to whitewash the history of the world, and certainly to whitewash the history of enslavement. And Africans here who want to curry favor with the Europeans and get whatever resources and crumbs the Europeans can throw their way have joined them in the whitewash. And so that's been one of our big complaints. As they take the slave forts and dungeons and make them World Heritage Monuments, they're whitewashing what actually occurred there. They're talking about trade. They don't want to say even slave trade. They want to talk about trade. And they want to talk about the positiveness that came out, not talk about the devastation, as our sister Marimba Ani, one of our great minds, formerly called Donna Richards, has produced a book called Urugu. And this particular volume is very important because it talks about the African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior. And so enslavement is an important part of understanding European cultural thought and behavior. And as I was saying before, if you don't understand what they did to their own people and their own women, then you can't understand why they did what they did to the Native Americans and Africans. Because there's a process in their culture which has produced central characteristics, which I have described as the 3 Ds: domination, destruction, and death. Okay. And we need to understand that. The European Jewish community needs to understand that more than anybody else, because what happened to them in World War II was domination, destruction, and death. But they weren't the only people so treated. The European history is full of domination, destruction, and death. And so our enslavement represents a continuation of that process. And the European does not want to admit what he has done. So he has turned history upside down. So we have Christopher Columbus.
And that hasn't changed even after the World War, domination, destruction, and death. That is the same kind of operation mode that even right now is operating. I think Dr. Leonard Jeffries might say that was with the World War I and the World War II, but it's the same operation mode. It's the destruction, and they also do have to bring death.
Was discovering America. How can you discover America when there were millions of people there in high cultures and civilizations from one end of the North America through Central America, down through the high Indies into South America. Cities larger than any cities in America, any cities in Europe, pyramids and high cultures, floating gardens, writing system. So how can he have discovered people who are already there? But we still say Columbus discovered America. And he never even got to America. He was on the out islands of the Caribbean. But still that myth is perpetuated. Parades and events occur in October, and at the 50th anniversary of the so-called discovery, even the Pope was going to come to America, until some people said, we questioned the Pope and the Pope's involvement in slavery. So the Pope kind of chilled out on having this big 500-year celebration around Columbus. But that's the European way. So the people involved in enslavement have been many, many European nations. Spain and Portugal, the Catholic nations, started it. By the 15 and 1600s, the Protestant nations emerged with the Protestant Reformation. And so there was an attempt by Protestant nations to take the slave system from Spain and Portugal. And those Protestant nations included the Dutch, the English, the Danes, the Swedes, and some German peoples. And so you have to see a war between the Protestants and the Catholics. They called it the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. You're talking about wars going on for years. Because we don't have an analysis of European history, we can't even see how it relates to African history. But it's out of this war and devastation, these 3Ds, domination, destruction, and death, comes the triangular slave system, which linked Europe with Africa with the so-called New World. And what happened was one of the most devastating epochs in the history of man in terms of death and destruction. And so the European wants that to be covered up. So we don't think of the Native Americans as having been destroyed, but if there were tens of millions of them, and after only a few years, millions, tens of millions had been killed, it's one of the greatest holocausts in the history of the world. That's never even mentioned. The peoples of the Caribbean islands were Native Americans. They're gone. Many peoples in Central America were wiped out, not only by European death and destruction, but by European disease. Disease mind, disease body, disease spirit, wiping out millions of people.
They don't watch the eggs.
Yes, and so we need to clock that.
He does tell it as it is. It's just about domination and death and destruction and death. And that is the way they have also been operating. People think they might have changed, but I'm just saying the way he tells it is the truth. People might think things have changed from the world war, even beyond that, even during slavery, but the same mode of operation stands, and people might not understand it, but people might think, no, they have changed. Oh, now everything.
I wish you keep playing them, Spikes. I wish you would have kept playing. Because you're right.
Yeah,
if I try to teach you, it hasn't changed. You keep the mindset is still the same to wipe you out. They never stop genociding all people. It's just the African is biologically stronger than anybody on the planet. So it's been harder to wipe us out completely. But they wiped out African people, not just in Tasmania and all across, like I said, Southeast Asia was all African. Where are those people at? They got wiped out by the Han Chinese or the Mongolians. So it's never been to stop. So as they merge into Africa with these bootlicks, it's still to wipe out African people. That's still the ideal.
Yeah, I agree.
Into the historical picture. And Columbus needs to be given his proper kudos. Columbus was the leading drum major for slavery. He started the transatlantic slave trade. And when he couldn't bring enough gold back to Spain and Portugal, to his mentors, who were the Sephardic Jews who had converted to Catholicism, who ran the money system and statecraft around the Spanish crown, when he couldn't bring back enough gold, as he promised Queen Isabella so she could continue the Crusades, he brought hundreds of Native Americans across the Atlantic as enslaved persons. So if you want to give Columbus his proper due, let's make him the leading drum major for slavery and the initiator for transatlantic enslavement. But we don't do that. We have parades for Columbus Day, and that history is not revealed. But our role as historians and people involved in African history is to reveal the history. But people don't want us to do it. Not all the Europeans covering it up. And one of the key European groups covering it up have been the European Jewish folks, because they say their hands are clean. And when I look at their hands, it's dripping with blood.
Okay.
And so they say we were involved in civil rights, but I said before the civil rights movement of the 60s, where were you?
In the 1860s.
And let's go back a few hundred years and put you in the middle of enslavement as enslaved persons. So if you want to give Columbus his proper due, let's make him the leading drum major for slavery and the initiator for transatlantic enslavement. But we don't do that. We have parades for Columbus Day, and that history is not revealed. But our role as historians and people involved in African history is to reveal the history. But people don't want us to do it. Not all the Europeans covering it up. And one of the key European groups covering it up have been the European Jewish folks, because they say their hands are clean. And when I look at their hands, it's dripping with blood.
Okay.
And so they say we were involved in civil rights, but I said before the civil rights movement of the 60s, where were you?
In the 1860s.
And let's go back a few hundred years.
And that's a good question. When he asked that particular question, they said they're in the civil rights and everything else, and they have been involved in all these other atrocities.
And put you in the middle of enslavement. And they say we were not there. I said, well, your records tell us that we did. I have 50 or 60 books on enslavement, and 35 of them are written by Jewish scholars on the Jewish involvement in slavery. So if you don't want us to know about your involvement, then you have to tell your people to stop writing the books and burn those they already have. As long as those books are there, we're going to study it. As long as it involves our history, we're going to reveal it. So the big attack on me for the last 10 years has been because I mentioned that some Jews, rich Jews, were involved in enslavement. Well, that's a no-no. Nobody's supposed to say that, but it's the truth.
It's okay for them to write it, but it's not okay for you to mention it.
And to analyze it in terms of your history and your struggles and what's happened to your people. But that's also true of people like the Dutch. They don't rate.
That is also a very, what can I call it, hypocritical. They do not want you to say it, and they do not want you to really say that they were involved, but them, they can continue writing the books. And I think Dr. Leonard Jeffrey says it right. You don't want us to say it, and then you should also be banning those books that you're writing. But of course, this is the truth.
As much vocal hell as the Jewish people, but the Dutch were the leading slavers.
Would the Dutch be the same people that we find in Azania, or as some people know, are referred to as South Africa?
Yes, and because of their enslavement,
South Africa.
That's how they found themselves in Azania, South Africa, because in 1652, as they were trying to rip off the slave system from the Portuguese, along with the British,
exactly.
and they had civil wars with the British, they had to leave. They were trying to find trade or enslavement in the Pacific and Indian Ocean, as well as in the Atlantic. So stopping in what is now called Cape Town area was a fueling stop for the ships on their way to the Indian Ocean. So we need to tie in the Dutch involvement in Asia along with the Dutch involvement in the Atlantic. And then you need to put the Jewish community in with the Dutch to see partners in the crime against humanity. And it was mainly rich Jews, because the Dutch had no need for poor Jews. They said, bring your rich Jews to Amsterdam and join us in our attempt to take the slave system from the Catholics. So they did that. They attempted in 1595 to take Brazil, to take Elmina here along the coast of Ghana. They weren't successful. They kept trying. But by 1630, they took Brazil, Pernambuco, and Recife. By 1637, they came to the west coast of Africa. They took Elmina from the Portuguese, and then they went down the coast and took Dahomey and Angola. And in that period of time, they also got Gore. So they controlled the slave system from which people were pulled out of Africa to go into the enslavement in the New World. And in the 1640s also, they went to war with Portugal, but it was an interesting struggle because Portugal broke from England, broke from Spain, and established an independent monarchy. They had a joint monarchy. And Portugal had no money to fight Spain, which was the richest nation in the world. So in order for Portugal to get arms to fight Spain, they had to go to the Jewish community and the Dutch community and ask them for help to fight Spain. And they did. In Europe, they were partners fighting Spain. But then since the Dutch and the Jewish community wanted the Portuguese slaving empire, they were at war with the same Portuguese over the colonies outside of Europe. So they had this dichotomy and this interesting conflict of being allies in Europe against Spain, but fighting each other in the Caribbean, in Brazil, and in Africa. So I'm saying if we don't understand all of these things going on, the Counter-Reformation, the conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants, which was heavily involved in what we call the 30 Years' War, 1612 to 1648. There's a 30 Years' War in Europe, thereabout. And that's the Catholics and the Protestants fighting. And if we don't clock that in, we don't see how Europe was in a devastating period where the Jews were leaving Eastern European nations as refugees and coming into Amsterdam. So Amsterdam by the 1650s was overloaded with refugees. So when the Portuguese finally regained Brazil in 1654, fleets of ships left, and at one point 16 ships left with the Jews of Brazil who had been slaving, and they brought them to Amsterdam. 14 ships came to Amsterdam, 2 ships went to the Caribbean. And when the 14 ships with a couple thousand Jews came into Amsterdam, on top of the thousands of Jews that had come from the 30 Years' War, that was an overload of the Amsterdam Jewish community. So in response to that, they fed the people who came from Brazil with a kosher meal, gave them a bath and another set of clothing, and then sent them out to establish colonies of sugar and slaves in the Caribbean. So I have what I'm developing called the 13 colonies. And most of us, because of our limited knowledge, think of the 13 colonies in North America. I'm not talking about that. At the same time that the North American U.S. colonies were being developed, the 13 colonies, there were 13 Jewish colonies being developed in the Caribbean and South America. So that history needs to be tied together. And part of the tying together is what we saw in Fort Amsterdam, where we just left a few moments ago. And unfortunately, not everybody was there to film it. But that Fort Amsterdam, which was the first British enslavement center along the coast of Africa from 1631 to 1665. But when the Second Anglo-Dutch War, when the Dutch and the English started fighting each other, and the war was settled, the Dutch gave up New Amsterdam, and it became New York.
New York.
Which said you can have Suriname, and it became the leading Dutch slaving colony. But at the same time, Fort Amsterdam in 1665 moved from English hands to Dutch hands. So the Dutch now had another base on the African coast. They had Fort Amsterdam linked to not New Amsterdam, because that's now English, but Suriname, which is the New Netherlands. So you have to see a triangle link between Amsterdam in Europe, Fort Amsterdam on the west coast of Africa, and New Holland, New Netherlands in South America, Suriname. Then when you see that triangle, you can understand what the system was all about. But if you don't see the triangle, you talk about African villages or Africans enslaving Africans, then you don't see the slave system that we know that perpetuated itself for 400 years, with Europeans making profit, fitting out the ships in Europe, leaving the ports of Europe, first the Spanish and Portuguese ports of Seville and Oporto and Lisbon, coming to Africa, then from the French ports of Nantes, Bordeaux, and Marseille, and Rochelle, going to Africa, and then coming from the Dutch ports of Amsterdam and Rotterdam, Zeeland, and The Hague, and come from the German ports of Hamburg and Copenhagen's Danish ports, then coming from the English ports of London, Liverpool, and Bristol. All of that fitting out of ships, making a profit with poor manufactured goods on the ships, going to the coast of Africa, trading these poor goods for gold and Africans, and then taking the captive Africans to the New World, and then working them to death on the plantations, and making a profit, and taking the profit from the slave activity back to Europe, making another profit. So this four-way profit system is what was the motor that moved enslavement, not Africans selling Africans or
I agree. And that is, of course, something that needs to be told. People talk about African enslavement, and people in their heads, they have Africans enslaving Africans, and of course, are removing the blame, or removing only the blame, because that is a reality. Because we did have all these different, the Spaniards, the Portuguese, the British, the Dutch, being heavily involved with it. But I think if you come to the context of Africans and ask them how this particular trade, this is not taught in schools. I'm glad that we do have Leonard Jeffries and another historians really just getting to treat people more. We might not have many people on the African continent even are getting involved. I understand, like in places like Uganda, they try a bit than Kenya to teach people on African history. That is what I understand from one of our friends who did study in Uganda, telling us that in Uganda they're a little bit more deeper, and they get to explain this. But for most part, the Africans really have no idea what was happening, and you will just be taught in schools. Oh, there was some Portuguese who came around. They built
That's sad. That's sad. Because he just talking about when the European got it, the white Europe, but not even the white Arab coming out of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Congo, going to the slave port coming from Kenya and Tanzania, going eastward into India, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and all those countries today. That just African slaves being taken out of Africa before the transatlantic slave trade that nobody wants to talk about.
And like you said, it's always something that a kid likes to say. It's all about domination and also destruction. They do not want to be your friend. They do not want friendship or anything. It's not about friendship. No. It's not about domination. Yeah, it has to be really subjugating you to towards dominate. They want to dominate you and run everything. Some Africans might think, no, they are coming with, they are helping us because they're giving us some aid. They are giving us a COVAX. They are giving us some aid. We can now get this and get that. It has never been about friendship or anything. It's domination, and Dr. Leonard Jeff says
and that's the problem of these African leaders, that they haven't put real history in the African curriculum. They kept the African ignorant for their own power and to help the Europeans. Africans should have been known. That should have been one of your first curriculum over the whole continent, that these people have been your historic enemy, and they seek no peace, no equality with you. It's always been about domination and control. How can they parasite and rule over you and get wealthy off your back? That's been the relationship. And you got some goopy Nigerian, the Chinese are here to help us. Oh my God.
I remember. Yeah, they want to be friends. We can be friends. They care about nothing. No one cares about it. It's just about dominating you and making sure that you are at the bottom.
The Chinese are not fair. The Chinese are coming to Africa to be your friend, stupid. Came to Africa because it's rich. How can we exploit it? They say, let's go to Africa to be these niggas' friends.
And if you're not careful, it will happen a second time. You hear Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Leonard Jeffries says that they came with cheap manufactured, poorly manufactured products, and they traded it for gold and for slaves. That is what the Africans got in exchange. You're getting poorly manufactured goods, which are really substandard goods, and then you're trading them for gold, and you're also trading those particular goods.
You got all this junk for real wealth. You got junk, Spike. You got junk. And these goofy cheese and these backward bastards got junk for real wealth.
And the same is happening even today. You're getting fiat paper and exchanging it for real wealth. But this is
Africans bringing Africans down to the coast. Europeans at the center of it. The Pope blessed it all. Every ship that left was blessed by either a Catholic priest or a Protestant minister. So they claim they were doing the work of God. There's something devilish
Yeah.
about that. There's something about even the concept that you're going to destroy somebody's humanity and you're doing the work of God.
Because
But
that's
see, they
not
had
God.
family.
Yeah, they had to bless people going into all these plantations and being murdered. Most of the people not even survive crossing even over from crossing over.
From Africa. Yeah.
They had already
From Africa.
They had already been prayed for and blessed by these
And so they could justify it in their minds and in their biblical traditions that we were not worthy of being treated better than the mules and the ox and the horse and whatever in enslavement. So that's why I say we need to see the slave system and not just slavery. And even when we see slavery, we need to see it as its European roots established it and not as we perceive it. See, European has said we're slaves. They say slaves out of Africa. They don't say captives.
You're dealing with a Jew barbarian.
They weren't slaves. They were captives. That's why they had them in chains. There's no plantations for them to work here. When they were sold into enslavement in the so-called New World, then that's when the serious enslavement process takes place that we know of. But
African built it all.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was no plantation, was nothing. The African built it all. That's what some of they built America, they built the planet. It didn't exist. Exactly right, Leonard. The African built all this shit. They built all the wealth of the planet. The African built it all, didn't exist. Go ahead, Spike.
Yeah. Yeah, they might make it seem as if there was some houses or anything already existing where they are. They were actually housed in these places. They were put in this environment, and everything was catered. Everything was already organized. You had to start from zero. It's not funny, but
it's continuing being true. So there's so many books coming out now that we've raised the question of enslavement that I laugh when they come out. One came out called The Slave Trade by someone called Hugh Thomas. It's this thick. And it deals with a serious analysis of slavery. And he starts out in it by saying that Minister Farrakhan and others had said that Jews were involved in slavery, but he was only able to find 2 Jews involved in slavery. And I saw him on TV saying that Jeffrey Farrakhan had said something, and he could only find 2 Jews involved in slavery. Now, what they do is they say the Anglo-Saxon slave system. But there's no Anglo-Saxon slave system. It was a European international slave system. So if you're going to just chop off a piece of the Anglo-Saxon slave system and not find any Jews in there, then that's your attempt to distort the perspective. England didn't allow Jews in England. So if there are not many Jews involved in the Anglo-Saxon slave system, because they were anti-Semitic and they prevented the Jews from coming in England. They chased the Jews out of England in 1290 AD, and they didn't let them back in until 1655, when the letter was written from Amsterdam by Rabbi Menashe ben Israel to allow the Jews back into England. By then, the slave system is already expansive and growing, and the Jews are not in England because they've been kept out. So if you want to understand the Jewish involvement in enslavement, you got to go across the English Channel to Amsterdam, to Holland, and then you'll see the heavy involvement in enslavement. And these people know that. So for them to focus on the Anglo-Saxon end of the deal means that they're hiding the truth. Now, there's a new book that came out called Jews, Slaves, and the Slave Trade by someone called Farber, F-A-B-E-R. And it's called The Definitive Answer, Straightening Out the Record. And the record that needs to be straightened out because some professors, like a professor at City College, who was the head of African Studies, said some Jews were involved in slave trade. Now, this is a professor from the university system I was a part of that can't even mention my name. There's no professor at City College. It's me, okay? And everybody knows who it is. And he never contacted me to say, well, Dr. Jeffries, I know you have this claim to fame that you said Jews were involved in slavery. And could you clarify that or give me the source of your information? He never contacted me. I never met the man. But then when I read his book, the first few pages, he mentions that there was a significant involvement of Jewish peoples in the Dutch slave trade. And then he quickly passes over that and goes into the English slave trade and leaves the Dutch slave trade alone. And instead of saying that our initial work should be on the English slaving, but if we really wanted a comparison, let's compare Jewish involvement with the Dutch compared to Jewish involvement with the English. That's a scientist and a scholar would have done that. But you can't do that because their involvement with the Dutch is so enmeshed that the real deal is told. And so you just hide it. But it's going to emerge. My whole approach is truth crushed earth will rise again stronger than before. And so as the truth emerges, it's going to be more difficult to hide it.
You know, from our exposure to history, it would seem that a lot of the wars, skirmishes that were engaged in by European nations against one another had at its roots and foundation Africans, or the trade or the attempt to take over the trade in African people. And that relationship,
I think even when he talks about exposure and the kind of an exposure we do have to African history, I sometimes tend to think that even when we did have many African countries getting to adopt, the colonizers' system of education, they also had to water it down because in their heads, in the colonizers' heads, they also thought that the African was dumb, and they had to water it down because the African doesn't have the capacity even to have an apprehension or an understanding of our own African history, which is really, really sad. That is why I believe perhaps that is one of the reasons I do believe maybe would be why we do not have a real African history also being taught in African school, which is really, really a shame. And I think it's also to do with the demeaning of the capacity of African students. We are the sharpest, but then again, I think that they will also water down and did omit lots of the information that we were supposed to be having. Even with this was done in codes with the people that took over from the colonizers in the 1960s, when we did have most of the African countries gaining their independence. But yes, I think I agree. Dr. Lona that Jeffries has done
a connection
information research.
It's not a relationship that is exposed when.
Let me just check if we still have the family with us. I'm not sure. Let me just get if you do have any comments on some of the conversation or some of the deliberations are made by Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Lando Winter, you are with us. He's saying the only money changer in Europe was a baron who called G today. They came into money because of the African in Europe who traded in gold, although the baron to mold gold. And I agree. And yes, Dr. Jeffries is speaking the truth on it. Turkey is not in Europe. It is in the continent of BF Africa and all East Africa to be exact. And you also say European didn't develop Europe. They developed in Africa. The crusade was in Africa, not Europe. And I got a pairs of those in blue, in navy blue. What are you talking about? I think I missed your earlier. No, I think you're messing with us at General Mosquito. But nonetheless, let me go back to these teaching by the one and only Dr. Leonard Jeffries regarding the matter of African people being put in these transatlantic slave trade and what did happen at the end of the day.
One goes through the academies or the school or the schooling. I know I was never exposed to it, and I don't know if anyone here was exposed to it in that manner. But we find when we pull back the veil that much of the activity of Europeans against one another had Africans, or the attempt to control the trade in Africans, at its roots.
Well, part of what you said is correct and part is not correct. The European history that I learned, and I have what I call a $1 million white boy education. The best that they give their own, I got. Okay, from the grammar school, all these little white kids, where I was the president of them, to the junior high school where I was the president, to the high school where I was the president, to Lafayette College, with only 2 black people. And when I joined there with another black fellow, we doubled the black population from 2 to 4, 100%. So in 1955, we integrated Lafayette College. And then when I went to Europe, 59, 60, to study in Europe, it was a white education. And then I came back for a PhD at Master's at Columbia and a PhD at Columbia. So that's the best that they give their own. And in that education, the history of Europe was built around wars of Europeans fighting others. Even when you learn the American history, it's the French and Indian War. It's the American Revolution. It's the French Revolution. It's the Haitian Revolution. So there's a whole series of wars. And when you learn English history, it's the 100 Years' War.
And your war with France.
The first 100 Years' War. 1400s. That's the period of Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc is a hero because she was fighting the English. And that's the first 100 Years' War. 100 years, England fighting France. And then in the 1700s, it's the second 100 Years' War. All these wars that we learn about, the War of the Spanish Succession, the War of the French and Indian War, the American Revolutionary War, the Napoleonic Wars, all those are the second 100 Years' War. England and France fighting each other for 100 years, taking a break in between for a year or two, and then starting up another war. But you're correct in mentioning that we don't see where Africa is in these war situations. And that's where they do keep us in the, in the dark. Because the fight by many of these European nations was around control over the slave system. And so that's part of the work that I've been working on for years. And what I do is establish 1482 to 1536 as the 50-year turning point of history. Before that time, Europe was land poor, resource poor, people poor. But after 1482, Europe began to move out of its icebox and try to get around the Islamic world that controlled the Mediterranean to get over to Asia.
Exactly. The Moors are poor.
They're afraid to go way
They were
out
poor,
into the sea.
got the icebox.
Because they may fall off.
The Moors are now collapsing.
The Moors, I think. How long was the Moors reign in Europe, Keith? How long did they reign in Europe?
800 years.
That's 800 years. Was it in two periods? That was in 2 periods, not one consecutive. Was it in one consecutive period or two periods?
No, it's one consecutive period from the blacks. I'm talking the Moors. I'm talking about other black people 1,000 years prior to that. Yeah, I'm talking about just the Moors rule from 711 to 1492. If you're talking about before that, when Hannibal controlled Spain and parts of Europe, that's almost 1,000 years before the Moors. That'd be 200. So that'd be 7. Then that was 9. That'd be 900 years before the Moors. But Hannibal was controlling all that shit, parts of France and all of Spain. That's 900 years before the Moors.
From the deductions from Dr. Ronald Jeffries, he says that Spain was the richest amongst these other the richest amongst these other European countries.
At first, because what? Because the Moorish rule. At first, it was the richest. It didn't stay the richest. Once they finally kicked the Moors off, Spain collapsed in about under 100 years. At that time, when he's telling you it was the richest, why? Because it was most intellectual, because of the Moors. But by 100 years, they had lost power, what? To England. It was Portugal and Spain. By the time 100 years over, Portugal and Spain were what? The weakest country. You had rising powers of England and France and Dutch and what you call Holland, Denmark, that's you call Holland. But by that time, Spain had fallen off. Portugal had fallen off. They became the poorest. They never recovered. Spain is still poor. Portugal is still poor. Go ahead.
It seems like Germany and Belgium are nowhere on the map with these particular comparisons. It seems like Germany.
Not yet. No, Germany don't come into its own. And it wasn't called Germany then, it was called Prussia. Prussia wasn't even Germany yet. It was called Prussia. Prussia. Prussia was, it wasn't a country yet. It was a bunch of disbanded, it's almost a bunch of tribal fiefdoms, like a lot of African countries were. And so Persia finally unites and becomes Germany. Prussia becomes Germany. Prussia. So Prussia finally becomes Germany. They decide to unite and become the German country that we know as Germany. And Belgium really was no great Belgium country. Belgium's not really Belgium has never been a European power, ever. So it is the African when they allowed us. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying somehow they still found a way to take over Angola and not Angola, the DRC and because Africa because they had to give them something. That's why they only got one colony. They ain't get a bunch of colonies. It wasn't a power in Europe, but they had to give them something because they're European. So they gave them the DRC. The power then was still what? France and England. That's why they got the majority of the. That's why they got the majority of the colonies of the continent. Go ahead, Mike. Hold on, I got a call. It's all good. I was just saying that we also do have the meeting taking place in Germany. Well, Germany still wasn't. We would presume that maybe perhaps the 1884 Berlin, the conference would have taken place in another different country. But that is another question for another different day. Let me play a little bit more of these, and then we shall go back in the matter of the George Floyd case. There have been witnesses are coming out and sharing the account of the matter. We shall be talking about briefly about that particular one right after this.
So they stay near the coast, and they discover Morocco, and then they discover Senegal, then they discover the Gambia, then they discover Sierra Leone, then they go down the coast here to Ghana, then they go down to Dahomey, then to Nigeria, all the way down to Angola in the 1440s. And then they come back here in the 1482 because this was the best base with this rock called Elmina, and with the river and the bay. It was a relatively protected harbor. So they saw that as the place where they could establish their base and continue their explorations and continue to slave their trading of enslaved Africans and gold. And then Columbus, who they say was here in 1482, found out about traveling west over the ocean and going east and getting to the east. And so he came up with the idea of going east. And so he tried to float it in Spain and other places, and it didn't float. But then in 1492, January, Grenada fell, the last Muslim stronghold, Moorish stronghold. And that meant that the Catholics were victorious in their war against the Moors after hundreds of years. But it also meant that the Catholics, now in power, with the help of Jews who switched from the Islam Moors to the Catholics, now the Catholics decided they were going to victimize the Jews. So by March, they declared that all Jews who had converted to Christianity and were backsliding had to leave Spain. And they gave them a certain period to get their act together to become true Christians. Otherwise, they had to leave. Then they decided that the Jews who were allowed to be Jews in Spain that had not converted were too much of a temptation for the Jews that had converted. So they said, we think you guys better get out too. So here the Jewish community that's well established in Spain and Portugal now had to leave. Now here comes Columbus with his idea about sailing west. And so nobody would buy it. But these Jews, knowing that they're being pushed out of Spain, said, wait a minute, let's look at it. Because if there's something on the other side, maybe that's where we can go when we're kicked out. So the converted Jews of Spain funded Columbus. So we learn a little myth that Columbus's voyage was funded by Queen Isabella's jewels, when in point of fact, Columbus's voyage was funded by Queen Isabella's jewels. And their names are historically recorded. Sant'Angelo and Abernal. They were the treasurers for the money people around the throne of Ferdinand and Isabel. And these were the people that Columbus signed his contract with. So by August, these people had to get out of Spain. And that's when Columbus set sail. And he did take some converted Jews with him, but he was financed by them. And when he sighted land and he reported back to Spain, he reported back to them. In fact, Columbus kept two journals, one for the Spanish throne and one which was the real deal, which was the Jewish financiers that financed him. So the history has not been told, but it's there. So from the very beginning, because Columbus is the first enslaver, the Jewish community of wealth was involved with the enslavement process in Spain and Portugal. And then they continued in the Protestant nations of the Dutch and the English. And so their involvement spans the whole spectrum of enslavement. So if you want to see a thread that links things together, it's good to follow the rich Jewish involvement in the slave system, and then you can see all the parameters. Now, luckily, this book by Hugh Thomas, in which he says only 2 Jews were involved that he could find were involved in the slave trade. When I read it with the Jeffries analysis and the Jeffries eyes and the Jeffries intelligence and his budding brilliance, I said, this book is a blessing. I have never seen anything with such a wealth of information on the Jewish involvement in enslavement in the New World. But it's not referred to as the Jewish involvement. It's the Morenos, Marrons. In other words, the converted Jews.
Those Jews who had converted
Catholicism, and then went to Mexico, went to Peru, went to Argentina, went to New Granada, which is...
I think our kid has mentioned some time back about the Morenos. Is it the Morenos? And I don't know if our kid is still with us. I think we lost our kid. I would just like to know about whether these were real Moors who did decide to go out and then later converted. And Sister Libera, thanks so much for joining us. Saying hi, fam. Hi to you too. Thank you so much for being part of the Black Finance Network family and joining us on the show today. You're saying facts, Lando, so is China, India, Europe, and all Africa. They really thought they had us programmed. Greece, Italy, all that was Africa. It was a Kemen. And the European history is nothing but savagery, wars, chaos, rape, pilots, and stealing, nothing to promote our civilization. And who was keeping score during the 100-year war between France and Britain? You're asking. I would hope that we do have people who do keep records. We have seen an interest in Africa. I think there were some people who were also particularly interested in keeping records of what was happening. Some of the records were either kept written, others were just oral. For the better part, the written, I think, was also done mostly in Kemet. So you would perhaps know what was happening maybe in a particular period. But I get what you're asking. I get what you're saying, Kid Abdulon. I do get what you're saying. You're asking who was keeping these records. General Mosquito was saying, I've been to Germany a few times. You will always find Polish, Belgium, and other people from European countries there. They also tend to be Muslims as well. And we need to stop identify African history with European terminology. That is a confusion itself. These people didn't create an alphabet or any writing on this planet. And you're saying about Catholics and Protestants, and that is very true. They didn't even know how to wash their asses, let alone come up with any alphabet. And you're saying it's unbelievable how people this week genetically took so much territory. It's mind blowing. There's also sometimes I have had people having the same conversation. I think I have also tended to ask the same. People do ask, if you go back retrospectively and ask yourself, how did it happen such we go to a point where the African people are colonized by people like this? And I do not really, even till today, I'm not really sure how that particular one happened, because I do believe the African people were
Colombia and
civilized,
Venezuela.
and they were also perhaps enlightened, and they brought this particular kind of an enlightenment even to Spain, the Moors. And then you go back and find that there was also now the same people coming back and taking over Africa, and you're not able to connect the two. There's a very, very big disconnect between these two, where you do talk about the Moors taking the civilization to these other parts of the, to Europe, and then having the Europeans then come back and colonize people. You would not really, there's a big gap, there's a big question mark that you can get to ask yourself. But nonetheless, Keith, I think you're back with us. I had a question. On that.
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking about the Morenas. The Morenas, I think. Were these Moorish people that converted, or who are Morenas? I had Dr. Jeffrey speaking about the Morenas.
But the Moors. Hold on, we talking about the Moors? Say it again with them.
No, I think Dr. Leonard Jeffrey is talking about the Morenas. Let me put it in context. Let me just get it in context. Just a second.
Jews of Spain funded Columbus. So we learned a little myth that Columbus's voyage was funded by Queen.
There's an echo on your end. I don't know what your end.
Okay, let me mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay.
Isabella's jewels, when in point of fact, Columbus's voyage was funded by Queen Isabella's jewels. And their names are historically recorded. Sant'Angelo and Abernal, they were the treasurers for the money people around the throne of Ferdinand and Isabel. And these were the people that Columbus signed his contract with. So by August, these people had to get out of Spain. And that's when Columbus set sail. And he did take some converted Jews with him, but he was financed by them. And when he sighted land and he reported back to Spain, he reported back to them. In fact, Columbus kept two journals, one for the Spanish throne and one which was the real deal, which was the Jewish financiers that financed him. So the history has not been told, but it's there. So from the very beginning, because Columbus is the first.
And exactly right. And Columbus was not Italian. He was a Jew from northern Spain. He was not that lie about him being an Italian is another lie. He was not Italian. He was a Jew from northern Spain, not Italy at all. Go ahead.
Of wealth was involved with the enslavement process in Spain and Portugal. And then they continued in the Protestant nations of the Dutch and the English. And so their involvement spans the whole spectrum of enslavement. So if you want to see a thread that links things together, it's good to follow the rich Jewish involvement in the slave system, and then you can see all the parameters. Now, luckily, this book by Hugh Thomas, in which he says only 2 Jews were involved that he could find were involved in the slave trade. When I read it with the Jeffries analysis and the Jeffries eyes and the Jeffries intelligence and his budding brilliance, I said this book is a blessing.
Hold on, Spice. Let me answer Shepard's question.
Yeah.
How can we get talk about people so genetically inferior? Because you were too many goofy tribes. You had become the same way you are now. The African practice self-hate on a level that's the lack of love and unity amongst black people. It's mind-blowing. You practice division amongst yourself that is ridiculous. We practice division amongst ourselves that is dangerous and ridiculous and is childlike. It causes our death and destruction. Let me give you one example, Shepard. You'll have individuals in Cameroon say they're not going to play Nigerian music because Nigerian music is now taking off and now more people will hear Nigerian music in Cameroon. As if Cameroon is different than Nigeria. There was no Nigeria nor no Cameroon. They're really the same people. But that's the pettiness Africans have amongst themselves. It's over and over and over and over again. So it allows other people to come in and dominate us because we're childlike. We're like children.
I think even when you're talking about Cameroon and Nigeria, is crazy because I think the division was even higher in that particular area, because you understand in Nigeria they do have 200 tribes. In Cameroon they do have 150. So between two countries you do have 350. So I don't think there is any other place on the African continent where the division was as crazy.
And also understand a lot of these tribes were created by the European. I must reiterate that. When they came into the Berlin Conference, they created a lot of tribes. These missionaries created tribes that didn't even exist to cause division. And so now, 100 years later, you believe you part of some tribe that you don't even know was created by the European. You'll fight and argue, I'm this tribe, I'm that tribe. It was completely a European creation to cause division so they can keep stealing and oppress you and conquer you. So a lot of these tribes that you think are tribes are not even tribes. Like just in Rwanda alone, there was no Hutsi and Tutsi tribe. That was created by the goddamn Belgium. They didn't exist. They created a Hutsi, Hutu, and a Tutsi. The Shona tribe, which we had Rumbizai. There was no Shona. No such tribe existed. Created by the white European. No such tribe. So these tribes that we got so many now, it's crazy. It causes confusion because it was meant to cause confusion. If I can create all these goofy tribes, I can divide you and conquer you. Keep you on the bottom. But now you divide and conquer yourself.
Yeah.
You got the same group of people that's in Cameroon, that's in Nigeria. The border is phony. You're the same people. There was no border there. 150 years ago, there was no border there. So that music you say is Nigerian is really your music, Cameroonian people. But you're too silly. You're too, I hate to say, you're too retarded. You're too ignorant. Go ahead, Spike.
But Lando also makes a very, very important point. I think we are also done in by our, we call it the Great African Humanity. I think because Lando says civilized people do not engage in war and destruction of others, because as an African, I think we do not see that need to be involved in destruction, death, or domination. I think that was not one of the driving factors. That was not one of the drivers that inspired African people to be dominating, to be destructive, to be...
still doesn't. It still doesn't. No,
yeah, that is
still
why,
doesn't.
Yeah, I think that is why perhaps that is also part of the answer that Shepo is asking. I think the African people are not like that. But then again, I think we have to get to a point where we have to address matters as they need to be addressed. Nishman,
well, this stuff has got to be learned, Spike, because your history. Why isn't this stuff taught to African people? You can't keep thinking people are your friends and you don't know real history of the continent. You can't keep in religious ignorance and religious lies. You have to know real history to deal with reality, Spike. You got to know what happened to us as a people. You got to know it. So when I say, hey, these people not been friends, what are you talking about? Like the Nigerian guy. They're here to help us and with and love us and help us.
Great, yeah.
No one would say that if you knew history, Spike. No one's like, are you out of your fucking mind, dummy? Asians have never been your friends. The Caucasians have never been your friends. And they're not your friends now. They've always tried to dominate and wipe us out. See, knowing your history, you would know that. And so you would act accordingly. But if you're caught ignorant, you say, like that guy said on the show, they're here to help us and help us grow and be our friends. What are you talking about?
That is the biggest problem. Maybe we share a little bit more on this, and then we shall get also on to what is happening in the George Floyd case, so the people can also understand we call it the Mondas operators. How do you call it? The state of the way they operate hasn't changed. so that people can also
So
get
hold on. While you pause now, hold on. Pause. So when you ask about the Moors are originally Hebraic people, not Islam. They eventually convert to Islam because that's the movement. But they're virtually Hebraic, coming out of what you call Kemet and Arabia, right? Because that was another fake religion that was given to by Europeans, the Greeks. But they changed the religion from they convert themselves. But the Moors never really believed in none of that shit. They're mostly African spirituality. That's why you have something called damn, having a brain fart here. What's the word I'm looking for? No, a spiritual Muslim. It really don't have to do with Islam at all. It's damn, I'm having a brain fart. What's the name of the Islam cats that are spiritual? Can't believe I'm having a brain fart.
Come back to you. Probably we still come back to you. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot what I'm having. I'm eating too much damn meat. Damn it! I'm eating too much meat.
The more you look for it, the more you look for it, the more it disappears. But yes,
I eat too much damn meat. That's the problem.
You only
soupy. Islam, soupy, damn. Soupy, the Sufism. Sufism is actually close to more African spirituality. So they put it under Islamic name, has nothing to do with Islam. It's closer to African spirituality. So it'd be Sufi Islam. They called it Sufism underneath that term. Yeah, you got that. There you go, Shepo. Yeah, you got it right, Kate. I got it before you bastards gave it to me. So, but it's Sufi Islam, right? Which is really African spirituality draped under Islam, because Islam was becoming a power, so they couldn't say they're not going to be Islamic unless they got their heads chopped off. So they just retermed Sufi Islam, say this is the spiritual side of Islam called Sufism. Just like with Hebrew, you got the Kabbalah, which is Hebrew, which is the spiritual side of Hebrewism. It's the real shit. Kabbalah, the Sufism, that's the real stuff. So that's your African spirituality. So so the Moors take that into Europe under the guise of Islam. I don't think the Moors ever became really Islamic. They're mostly Sufis. They're mostly very educated Sufis. So, because they knew too damn much. It's almost like they were perpetrating a fraud with the Islam. Because Sufism is as far away from Islam as possible, right? It's not Islam at all. It's African spirituality. So, I will go ahead and let him speak. I'll let him talk.
No, let me share. Okay. Let me share a little bit on these. We can. Yeah, that was KW. Don't also knows. He says it's a Sufi. Let me play a little more on this so we can get to where the Morenas was.
Anything with such a wealth of information on the Jewish involvement in enslavement in the New World, but it's not referred to as the Jewish involvement. It's the Morenos, MARRONANONS. In other words, the converted Jews.
Those Jews.
Yes, what you call? Pause it. What you call? Pause it. What you call the convert the Ashkenazim, the Ashkenazim Jew, or your Khazarian, the fake Jew today. What you look over there. And I was arguing with John. I was arguing with John's wife. John told me she thought those white people were the real Jews. No, lady, those are converts from Europe. The Moors brought the Hebrew, because they were mostly Hebrews, going into Europe and converted to Islam, but they really practice Sufism or ancient Kabbalah, right? Hebrew Kabbalah. So they go in And even though a lot of the white Jews also converted before that, a few 100 years before that, up in Russia, those are your converts. Ain't none of them had to do with any David, even though there was no such thing as no David, King David and King Solomon. That's all made up bullshit. But they have nothing to do with even the made up people that they're talking about. It has nothing to do with them. They're converts, as he's so eloquently saying. They're not, but now they sit in Israel. They made up this fake Israel. And we got to say, oh, you the holy people. They converted to an African religion. That's who they are. And they are the main arbiters of the slave trade in the Atlantic and the East Coast of Africa. Not just in the Atlantic, in the East Coast of Africa with the white Arab. The white Arab is mostly an Ashkenazim. That's what the house of Saud is. Nobody really knows that. But the house of Saud are mostly Ashkenazim, masking themselves as Islamic. House of Saud, which is Arabia, is Ashkenazim. But we're not allowed to say.
Yeah, sorry, go on. No,
we're not allowed to.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Spikes, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I wouldn't be surprised even if the Pope was really Muslim, masquerading as the Pope. I wouldn't be surprised because everything is almost the same. They do it towards a given end. They say that the means that justifies the end, and therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if he was. You got
a bunch of religions created by animals. Bastardized African spirituality. That's why you see the hats, Kemetic, the Pope hat, all that shit's Kemetic. You already know that. Islam shit is Kemetic. It's all bastardized African spirituality for an individual who's not human. That's why war after war, not just in Europe, you got war after war in fucking Asia when the Huns finally get control of Asia. It's war after war after war after war after war after war, just like with the Khaganate, which means the Turks, who are the ones in Saudi Arabia today, or in Northern Africa. These are Turks. These are not Arabs. Arab were black people, but these are people that took on the identity of now calling themselves Arabs. They are Turkmen, Turks from the Ottoman Turk Empire and from the steppes of Asia is where they come out of. They're Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. That's where these motherfuckers came from. They're not Arab. And so all they did was fight war, because they were created as a warlike people from animals. You get it? They're not civilized because they're not human beings. And I'm not gonna get on that. I'm not gonna get in on that on this video. They're just gonna say they war on one another because they're not what you think they are. It's always war, raping, pillaging, killing, war, killing, raping, pillaging. So they needed a religion to give them a sense of civility and civilization, to humanize this beast. They needed some kind of rules written down for their ass to adhere to, because you got a savage running around committing savagery.
I think someone like a moral code, really sort of humanize them, like a moral code where you
exactly
have,
right, Spike. That's what exactly. Ding, 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 ding. A moral code to have them act a certain way.
Yeah. That's
what Islam was created for. So Christianity was created for the white European. Islam was created for the white goddamn Turkmen, white Asian, to give him a moral code to stop him from licking his own ass with his shit in his hand, to stop raping little children. It hasn't stopped them. Stop fucking kids and raping people and murdering. It was a code of conduct.
But it hasn't stopped them. It hasn't stopped them from from doing what
No,
they do.
because at heart you can't give a beast a moral code. Sad fact, black people are the only ones follow that because they are spiritual. So they took the code and out Islam, Muhammad, out Christian Jesus. Black people take that and become trapped in that goofy lie. That you gave it to other people to humanize them. And right, has it really worked?
Hasn't.
Well, they wear suit and ties now and they've got cologne, so they smell better.
That doesn't change who you are from within. It doesn't change. It doesn't change who you are from within. You might say, "Oh, you have the cologne you're wearing."
You got the white Arab now wearing that Arab garb. It's all white and it's clean. He's not wiping his hand. He's not wiping his butt with his hand no more. That was Arab culture. The white Arab that never either shake his right hand or his left hand because that's the hand he used to wipe his ass with. He have a handful of shit on his hand all day. You're like, God damn. Imagine wiping your ass.
Even
never wiping it off. Remember, Spikes, imagine wiping your ass.
I'm just saying.
Hold on, Spikes, answer this question. Imagine wiping your ass after you do and never wiping your hand off.
I'm not going to be doing any of that.
But that was the white hair.
From Orlando.
Go ahead.
You might try humanize them and take them with what do you call them? The bathing houses. What they call the bathing houses or the shower houses that the malls took to Europe. I can't remember what they are called. Whether they are
the bathhouses. Because the European and the white Arab didn't clean the bathhouses. You can pull that up. Go images of bathhouse. Only one that was clean and bathed themselves were African people. That was your culture. You didn't live in your own filth. You didn't wipe your hand you didn't wipe your ass with your hand and say, "Oh, this is doo-doo," and then keep it on there. You knew it was shit. Say, "Hey, I got shit on my hand and it stinks," and keep it on your hand.
Shepo Simono says, "Be aware of the man that greets you with his left hand." You might have done.
Yeah, I think it was the left hand. Yeah, I think it's right. Exactly right. Exactly right, Shep, because that was the culture. They wipe their ass with their left hand and keep the shit on their hand. It's great. Well, you know their history, black people. You should never feel inferior to these people. You got to know their history. Yes, we're on the bottom now. But if you know their history, you won't feel inferior to nobody. Walking around with a shitty hand, talking about I'm better than you. Talking about, Spike, shake my hand. Smell it. Ooh, what's that on your hand? Smell it, God damn it, it's shit.
I'm just like Sister Monique. I didn't or never will be shaking hands with anyone. I don't know where you just came from. You might be shitty hands. Nonetheless, we almost went up, but I think this is really an interesting matter because Dr. Leonard Jeffries has shared it. And I also think even with the transatlantic slave trade, there is also the element of sulfate because like people were breaking apart into small tribes. I think this was also inspired by sulfate.
Of course.
One thing.
Okay, let's assess it today, Spikes. Let's assess it today. Why are the Africans still doing something that doesn't benefit us? Why Africans still talking about let's separate even smaller tribes? Why are they doing?
I think it's lack of trust among ourselves. We do not have trust among ourselves. I think we have what can I call it? We are quick to forget. That is one thing, and sometimes we are slow to learn. We forget what has been done when we are divided. We are conquered easily, so we forget and we go back to dividing again. Because if we were learning and we did not forget as quick, then we would have remembered some years back we were strong. Right now we fell apart because we were defeated because of being divided in small groups. We need to come back and be one unit or be united as one.
Well, how about that? Don't that make sense? Exactly. But that's common sense, Mike. What you said is why don't the Africans know what you just said?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think we forget quick and are slow to learn sometimes. But Also, the element of trust. Not many people do not trust. We do not trust each other, which is really, really difficult. Nonetheless, as we wind up, I will be sharing one small clip. I don't know. I will be sharing one particular small clip. This was from the 1999 Life movie by Eddie Murphy and Martin Rollins. And we do have the house nigger, and this was one of the.
Spike's been shaking their hand forever. It just all around Kenya. How you doing? Hey, what's going on? Spike's been shaking that doodle hand.
The thing with where I'm from in central Kenya, we do not have many Muslims. Muslim, you find them along the coastal towns. You'll not go.
I know Mombasa, around Mombasa.
Yeah, around Mombasa, you'll go shaking the hands of people. You'll go shaking the hands. You go shaking the hands of people only to realize that their hands have doo-doo, and that the Ugandan says that
I'm joking.
Sorry. Go on.
I don't think they got shit. I think they learned to wash their hands now, Spikes. They're not walking around with shitty hands anymore. I'm just talking about back in the day they would. So they wash their hands now today. Oh, what brought us? Yeah, this the damn. What's this like?
Yeah, life. This is life. I just want to share one of the things why African people do not trust each other. You will find one African playing other Africans, or doing other Africans more than even the cracker is doing them.
Yeah.
Let me briefly on this, because you'll find there was a subordinate, not the subordinate, but there was. Let me show us one of these individuals here.
You spit, you pee.
Yeah, you talking about
your job out over the gun line.
You talking about the black guy with the gun? That's right. I'll kill you. Yeah. And if boss don't do it, you better believe. Ain't that right? I'll shoot you. Yeah, you talking about the coon? Yeah, you always got African coon. Go ahead and play.
And he was actually saying that I will slap the black out of you. He's actually black, but says I will slap the black out of you, and I'll shoot you. And if the boss doesn't do it, I'll do it.
Of course.
Together, the battle is showing us.
We always got bootlicking butter biscuit coons. I always got butter biscuit coons.
and this is what you want to say. Let me share this briefly, then we shall wind up.
Yeah, go for it.
Don't try to run. Don't try to escape. One of my trustees will put a bullet in your head. You prisoners are now the property of the state of Mississippi, which is to say, I own your ass. And in case you haven't met this handsome young fella, this is Hoppin' Bob. You run afoul of Bob, you run afoul of me.
Hoppin' Bob.
Everybody, shut up! Right now, I don't want to hear sound. Got some fresh meat for you right down there. Take yourself right down there, find your ass a bump. Move it! Acting all scared. We ain't got no wallflowers here in Camp 8. Don't y'all worry, Don. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you tonight. That'll take all the fun out the court shit. You hear me, boy?
I didn't see nothing special the first time Ray and Claude walked into the cage. To me, they were just a couple of fools that were kicked out.
Yeah.
Of course, I was wrong about that.
New York City, I'll shoot the shit out your ass.
This is off-court behavior. The only one came to
That's what they would do. They would.
Yeah. So go on.
This Mississippi. So they would illegally plant things on you because this is still slave labor. It's what they would do to black people still today. Put plants, same offenses on you, and you would be doing these times in prison for years, 10, 15, 20 years of being on some innocent shit.
Or even life.
Because they control the system, or even life. And you had no recourse of how to get out of prison. So if you escape, just like we talking about, remember the Scottsboro boys, which I showed Spike, we did here about a year or 2 years ago, who happened to be in Alabama. Some white woman lied on them. Some of they raped them. Those boys are put in prison for life. Some of them escaped, and I think those boys never. Some died in prison. Some got out. I think one came back, stupidly came back or something, if I remember. You're out your fucking mind.
This is
I
what
can't remember the one.
Yeah.
Good. What you say, Spikes?
No, I'm saying this was what was going on with the same boys.
Then you got to be worried about being raped in prison by your own people because their minds are fucked up. Now you got to be man bussy. You got to fight everybody, keep them off your butt. Your man bussy. Don't worry about it. You got the courtship coming.
What do you know in here, okay? It's too damn hot. Why ain't that boy back swinging? Why ain't that bitch swinging? Like a pick swinging, nigga. It's too hot. I'm tired, boss. He said it's too hot, boss. He's tired. Too hot. He's tired. Uh-huh. You tell that lazy jigaboo to the state of Mississippi I ain't interested in his meteorological assessment. Listen up, jigaboo. State of Mississippi ain't interested in your meteorological assessments. You tell him the state of Mississippi you're only interested in getting this here.
They will use black people. It's the same kind of operation. They will use black people to do harm to black people, and because you're trusting them, thinking this is anything good. And he had to interpret. He had to go and interpret.
It's cleared by sundown. Hey, Mississippi, want this here bitch cleared by sundown. You got that, boy. Got it.
That boy.
Sound like he's from around here. He's from New York City.
He's sad to you.
Well, they'll find we do things down here. Yeah, you noticed. Don't smart me, boy. You just shut your mouth and do your work. You got that? Look like we got a couple of live ones. How long these boys in for?
The judge gave them the long ride, boss.
Live, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they step out of line again. We'll shorten up that sentence real fast.
Get them pictures swinging! You heard me, New York City. You don't want me to come down there. I ain't nice like boss. I'll slap the black off your ass. Get the what?
Anyhow, that is the bootleg they are talking about. I'm not as nice as the boss. I'll slap the black off your ass, and this is just another black man telling you they will be slapping. It's crazy. I think that is why we don't have a trust even amongst our own people, because we do not know what will happen. You will find someone getting the butter biscuit, and the next thing you know, they'll throw you under the bus and have you killed. Anyhow, we are winding up this particular broadcast.
What they did. What they did in slavery, Spikes, you get a bigger plate of butter biscuits if you sell out each other. That's the actual fact. If you sold out each other, they give you a bigger plate of actual butter biscuits. I got me some butter biscuits selling your ass out.
Anyhow, family. No, we have to touch on what has been happening. Let me just touch on what has been happening with the case of George Floyd. Of course, it has been going on, and there has been some witnesses that have taken the stand, and they have been giving their own testimonies of what did happen with the case. Sorry, I almost forgot with that particular, because we went into a little bit on what was happening in the history. But there has been the witnesses, and the witness, one of the witnesses did say that the more the people came on and tried to have Derek Chauvin, or this particular arrest soldier, the more the crowd was trying to have him, get off the neck of George Floyd, the more he exerted more pressure. That is, one of the witnesses did say that he felt that the more the crowd was trying to have him leave George Floyd, the more he exerted more pressure on the neck of these particular individuals. And now, of course, the witness says she hasn't been back to the scene. I don't want to be reminded. One of the witnesses says, I haven't been back to the scene.
So if we know their history, Spikes, what we just said, we know how they feel. Since we know their history, you know, most likely they always want to let each other off. They don't care about murder and killing. That's their nature. So how could you feel that anybody should be murdered for a $20 infraction? How should someone's life be taken away for a $20 infraction? It's crazy. But most white people say, yeah, it's good. He's supposed to die and get killed and his neck snap. Because that's their nature. That's the nature of something. And black people can't fathom. That's why you never get no justice system in any system you are in with them. You never get any justice with these people. Always. Injustice is the nature of the beast. Always.
And another witness, of course, says I felt like I was failing him. It is one of the witnesses to George Floyd's death. The witness became audibly emotional when being asked about watching the death of George Floyd. You could see in his face that he was slowly not being able to breathe. His eyes were rolling back at one point. He just kind of sat there or laid there. The witness said. The witness stopped talking for more than 30 seconds after saying it was difficult to speak about Floyd's death. And you know, when these arrest soldiers say that they could not, they of course these happened because of the overdose. George Floyd says about 27 times he could not breathe. So it was not like he did not hear him say what he could not breathe. It was not like
exactly right.
He said maybe
but Spikes just said he didn't have any empathy. He wasn't a human. He didn't have any empathy for this man whatsoever. It was not empathetic that this is another human being. Let me act humanely. I don't feel nothing for him. And who was next to him? An Asian, which is the same thing. An Asian dude there and a bunch of Caucasians. They don't feel any empathy. You know, I'm saying I can't breathe. I'm calling out for my mother. And as just like with that, Spikes, you see the same behavior they did with the man. I was going to the man in Rochester, New York, with the damn bag on his head. They had him cry for his mommy. He was up there dying. He's out there in the cold. Instead of getting a humane treatment, put him in bikes, they put a thing over his head and choked him to death.
And they also the same thing also did.
That man needed help. They put a bag over his head and choked.
The same thing also did happen in Aurora. The guy who had a mask on. What was his name again? There was a young man who had a mask on, and they also did kill him. And he was saying that he was not able to really. He was saying that he was not.
Oh, that's one in Colorado. You showed. That's one in Colorado, right? That's one in Colorado. You showed that they killed a young boy. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was not involved. He was not involved in any crime.
Any crime.
Yeah, and they continued with this. Nonetheless, we are winning up the court.
Spike, when we talk about that, we got to go back to the Dred Scott decision where we said yesterday it all goes a black man, I forgot the damn paraphrase, but a white man doesn't have to respect white man has to respect no rights of anybody black or whatever it goes. I don't know how it goes, but Dred Scott decision,
yeah. Go on, sorry.
Yeah. Put in the damn put that comment in the chat when we get Kate on, because I can't always mess it up. But that's what you see over and over again.
Man. And I was talking about this Eliza McClain in Colorado as well, and he was also not involved in any crime. He was just someone who would just call and say someone is looking suspicious. And the outcome of this particular case was that the Colorado police had no legal basis to restrain the man, but nonetheless there was not any kind of consequences to this particular police, even if they did restrain him. According to the report, there was nothing done with
Yeah, he was a child, K-Don, exactly right. When they accused of a young 14-year-old black boy, and he was mentally challenged. I think he's retarded or he was slow. He's a 14-year-old boy they sent to the death tent. They electrocuted that boy. And a white man confessed. They know that boy didn't kill those two white women, but they still electrocuted that child. And then years later, but a few years later, they exonerated his murder. He's dead now. But that's how wicked these fucking people are. And that's what, yeah, black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. That's it. Exactly. A black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. And that's them on a global level, not just America, globally. So you got it, Spike.
Yes, I agree. That is what KW non share with us yesterday according to that particular comment that you have shared with us. And Sister Nisha says these things are beast. People better stop this nonsense. People don't even know what time it is. And Akil always keeps on saying the problem is even black people do not know what we're dealing with. That is, if you're in a war, I was saying yesterday, if you're in a war, you do not know who is the enemy, what you're doing, what is happening, then how will you win? But nonetheless, we are winning up. I want to thank everyone that has been with us. I think we are doing the job of opening up people and also sharing information that is vital. We need to create that particular collective African consciousness. I want to thank Shepo Simono, all the way joining us from Johannesburg. KW Don, thank you so much for joining us. We also do have Sister Nish Penda.
We're slowly waking up because, like Spike showed early, Dr. Mumby earlier today on a show. What she say? She said, and she could wake up. She thought I was a rabid Christian when I first got on here. Evangelical, Jesus out the mind. She was. If she could start waking up, all Africans will start waking up. That woman was rabid with that bullshit. Like, oh my God. She was a Jesus nut, boy. Go ahead, Spike.
No, she actually said it on her video. And I agree with her. She's also wicked. Sister Angela Morris, I think we're also doing a good job because you'll find even when we share these particular other videos, like Kami was saying, if she tells the same information to other people, it'll be like no. But you go back and research it on your own, and you verify it, and you find it's correct, and from there you can be able to do your own personal transformation. Sister Angela Morris, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I think we didn't see a comment from you earlier, but we are delighted, and we thank you so much for being part of the Black.
I think she's just coming in.
Or maybe she was with us, maybe even earlier. Maybe she just decided to just say, drop a comment. I do not know. But thank you so much.
Oh, okay. It may be. But don't shake no Arab's hand. Might got that doo-doo on it. Not no more. Not no more.
She was one I've been watching, and she said the right Ten Commandments. Mr. General Mosquito from the UK.
Yeah, that was a while back. Yes, she did. The people came after, her Kenyan audience and the other black people that listen to her. So they went crazy. Throw away the Ten Commandments. You blasphemous bitch, you. You're going against my Lord, you no good bitch. I believe in you, Dr. Mumba. You taking me down the road of Satan. Beloveds, don't get mad. Just keep it pushing. Don't be on my channel. Just keep it pushing. If you're with the Jesus and the Ten Commandments, just keep it pushing.
and Sister Monique Hill from California, thank you so much for being with us today. Let them hang down. It's an honor to have you joining us on the show, and also Lando Winter. Lando Winter, thank you so much. Your insight is also very, very much welcome and valuable.
Much love, family. Just keep it pushing, family. Much love. Just keep it pushing. Don't come on my channel. Go ahead, Spike.
You will be asking like what was her name? Melly J. Brides. Is it
a knife? Is it a gun? Is it a bat? Is it the Ten Commandments?
Anyhow, family, we want to thank everyone, and I hope to see you tomorrow on other different shows on the Black Watch Financial. If you would like to support the stream, you can support the stream with $5, $10. You can actually cash up Mr. Blackwood. You can also support
we know that. We know that K-Dot came out. All that shit comes out of Kemet. We know that. As Spike said, they taught you to hate Kemet, and all these fake religions come out of Kemet. They're bastardized versions of African spirituality. They're bastardized, though. Of course, it comes out of Kemet, the 42 laws, the 42 negative compare. It does, but Africans don't know that. And she said, hey, family, got to get rid of 10 commandments. You don't know, good black Kenyan bitch. How dare you? How dare you? I'm gonna call President Kenyatta on you, bitch, and your evil ways.
She will be getting stoned in the, she will be getting the fingers,
stoned to death. We're gonna stone you when you come to Spike's, because hell, I think she's from Spike's tribe, around where Spike's come from. We're gonna stone you, Dr. Mummy, when you bring your ass to the village, bitch. Spike's gonna stand there and ain't gonna do nothing. I don't know what's going on. I don't know this lady. Do you know this lady, Mr. Spikes? I don't know who she is, family. Go ahead, stone her.
Is it a stoning? Is it a command? Anyhow, family, thank you so much.
Is it a stone? Is it a knife? Is it a block of ice?
KW Don, thank you so much for that particular comment. And I haven't seen family for a minute, but I hope that everyone is doing well. I haven't seen Naturalista more. I haven't seen the Adi Van for a year. I haven't seen.
I didn't read the comments. I'm about to go back and look at. the comments. I'm about to go look at the comments. But I know she's up there with Spike's. She's part of Spike's tribe, and they gonna come after her ass.
She's, I believe, from central Kenya, where I'm also from. But nonetheless, I want to actually remind us that we shall also be adding.
When they stoning her ass, Spice gonna walk by whistling like he don't know what the hell's going on.
I will be in Kigali. I will be in Kigali when it happens. Anyhow, I want to remind the family, please make sure, if you would like to support the trip to Tanzania, kindly use Cash App, Mr. Blackwood Fire, or you can also use the network website.
Go to the website. Go to the website at blackoutfirenetwork.com. Go to the donation page. You can actually, or just regular donation. Anyway, it's possible. I hope they're gonna be showing you great, amazing footage from Tanzania. Spikes is gonna be crying about it's hot. But it's gonna be great footage.
I will be showing the family the story.
He can eat all the unlimited seafood he wants, and then he can take him to the slave quarters, because some of his family got caught in the slave trade. They came out of Kenya, came out of Uganda, came out of Tanzania, came out of Congo, going eastbound. They don't never like to talk about that part of slavery. So, it went both ways. What'd you say, Spikes?
I'm saying that has not been mentioned. That will not be mentioned. They will not talk about the slaves are being taken from Tanzania and Uganda and Kenya. It's mostly West Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Why do you think that slave market is there? they didn't put slave market there and go all the way to Nigeria to get the Negroes and march them back east. They got them from Kenya. It's a fact. Got them from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, Congo, and Burundi. Shit. Say, hey, nigga, get on that boat. Where am I? Am I going on a cruise? Yeah, you're going on a cruise of slavery. I will play shake my hand first. But you got doo-doo on your hand. Go ahead.
Is it a sheep? I will play a fool and ask them, is it a sheep? Is it the ocean? Then I'll just go back to the village. Just like Kameli said, Is it a sheep? Anyhow, family. Precise, you saying aspects a Nigerian prince want to send you some money. Please, this is a stereotype. Not all Nigerians want to send you money. It's a stereotype. Please do not believe, but you also have to be careful. And nonetheless, we shall with this tomorrow. It's actually 4 minutes past 11 in Nairobi, and much peace and love to everyone. Everyone a happy
much love, family.
Part of the day, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Having fun, got money fun.
Big move back.
Having fun, got money fun. Having fun, got money fun. Having fun, got money fun. Cause paid the car, before. Paid the car, before. Paid the car, before. Cross the track.
See the ball.